What's the sluttiest thing you've ever done? I did this semester in Paris, and we stayed at a place called the FIAP. It's like a hotel for traveling class groups from all over the world. Hotel rooms, with classrooms if needed. My group, from the US, was there for 3 months, but many other groups from nearer countries were on shorter trips, especially week-long. Since they often left on Saturdays, Friday nights became the social time when they would hang out at the cafe on the first floor for last night shenanigans. And those did happen. Most of my group was mid-20s, but I was 18 and still figuring out confidence, but I did go there one night, when a group from South Africa was having their last night. I ended up taking one girl back to my room to have some fun. After we were done, she said, "My friend down there really liked you. You should see if she's still there." I was more than a little flabbergasted, but she was still there. She was more daring me to play with her in semi-public areas before she also came up to my room. The following Monday, as we were getting to class, this kind of mean girl tried to tease me, loudly saying, "So, the worst thoughts. I saw you bringing a girl to your room the other night." I was so oblivious. I answered, "Which one?" The classroom erupted. I've never received so many high fives, and it took a few years before I ever saw a girl blush harder than that mean one. Oh god, this is a tie. Met a girl on Tinder that used to be a stripper and is a current cam girl. Thought she was joking and called her bluff asking to go to the club she used to work at. Went there and had free entry and drinks all night. Went back to my place, she stripped for me, had some 7/10-6. Woke up the next morning and she asked if she could use my room to do a cam show. About halfway through her show she walks out and says one of my regulars noticed I was in a different room. I told him I was at a guy's house and he just paid me $100 for you to fuck me. I obliged and she gave me $50 of it. Second is there was a supervisor from work, we'll call her Amy, I thought was pretty cute but she'd turned down going out twice so I left it alone. Her friend, we'll call her Belle, an operational manager, step higher than a supervisor, let me know Amy doesn't like going out with people from work but they go out for drinks all the time and Amy actually had interest in me. Belle and I set up a plan where her and Amy will go out for drinks. Belle will text me where they are, and I'll accidentally run into them. Fast forward to that night, we are all hammered and get a lift back to my place. Belle passes out as soon as she gets to my place and Amy and I go at it. The next morning Amy wakes up and gets a lift to work. Belle wakes up shortly after, rolls into bed with me, and says, "Do I get a reward for helping you out last night?" And proceeds to suck the soul out of me. 5/7 night, probably wouldn't do it again though. Wow. At first I felt Belle was the ultimate wingman, but she became my role model in the end. I literally couldn't believe it when it happened, was like a porn plot. I went to a Southern Baptist school growing up that was insanely strict and overbearing. You would be suspended for basic PDA like holding hands or hugging, and to make matters worse, teachers had eyes on the back of their heads. This made for some pretty rebellious times when a few of us devils would plan ahead to try sneak in a makeout session in the few places we knew we could get away with it. Now, our church chapel doubled as the school theater, and unless we were having mass or theater class, that chapel was locked down 24/7. We were having a dress rehearsal in theater class my senior year, when I was backstage and realized that someone had left the key in the back door exit behind the stage. There were 2 keys on the keychain and after trying both, I realized they were the same key for the same door. I quickly pocketed one off the keychain and no one was the wiser. This was the kind of good fortune my horny and sexually repressed teen self dreamt about. I had the hots for this girl and we had managed to sneak away several times, make out, and get our hands under each other's shirts a few times too, but nothing more because we were always so scared of getting caught and expelled. Her parents were hardcore Baptists, dad was a pastor, and would never let her go anywhere on weekends, not even to sleep over at a friend's house. She would often slip me a folded note saying the dirty things she wanted to do. I want to feel you in my mouth, inside me, I want to know what your jizz tastes like, etc. We spent months just needing a place to do it, and finally, this key was my golden ticket to the fuck factory. The opportune day arrived when she told me in the hallway before first period, "My sister has junior high choir today, so my mom is coming an hour late to pick us up. You need to get out of study hall last period and meet me behind the chapel." I made up an excuse to the dear old librarian hall monitor that I needed to do work in the computer lab since I was behind on a project. The kind Christian lady let me go easily. Bless her. I casually walked across the campus and made sure to not be spotted heading behind the chapel. Sure enough, she was there waiting for me and we snuck in and locked the door. We both lost our virginity that day, inside that holy place, and for 30 minutes we quietly fucked our frustrations goodbye. We felt like normal, happy kids in each other's arms in that dim-lit church. I will never forget the sluttiest thing I have ever heard in all 32 years of my life as she whispered in my ear. "God's watching us. I want you to fuck the Jesus out of me." We never did get caught. And if there was a God watching, I'm pretty sure he's the one that left the key in the door for me that day. This deserves best of status for this thread. As a guy who had to go to a strict Christian school first 7th grade, I loved it. This story was so good I had to stop halfway to check the username to make sure it wasn't a novelty account. One time I was playing GTA Online as a female character and some dude came up to me asking if I wanted a good time. As any reasonable person would do, I said yes and got in his car. He made me crouch in front of him to blow him and he would air thrust in my direction, all the while messaging me "oh yeah Doug" kinda thing. As terrible as it sounds, he would protect me from other players and would pull out his super nice brand new DLC cars for me to drive around in, and he would carry me through missions for his money. I even would make him take me out to burger and taco places before he could have his way with me. 10/10 would do it again. Helped me pay for my first nice car. Edit, dude. A year later. Thank you for the platinum. I had a female character on GTA as well. The amount of people who would try to pick me up was hilarious. One took me to all these real nice spots and we went on the Ferris wheel in the end. He took me on a tour in his helicopters to finish the night. WTF was I doing with my life? Gwislet moment. Got blown by 2 goth chicks in a graveyard. Edit. Since I've had multiple requests for details, I will give them to you pervs. The 90s goth scene had a girl-guy ratio of about 5:1. If you, as a guy, were willing to put on platform boots, makeup, and tease up the hair, you would have to try very hard not to get laid regularly. There just wasn't any competition. I had the added advantage of being singer-guitarist in a band that was fairly well known in my area. One night immediately after we finished our set, I was getting my gear picked up off the stage. I felt a hand running through my hair from behind me. I had waist-length black hair and it was a feature for a lot of goth girls who liked me. I turned around and a very pretty girl was standing there smiling at me. She said, "I love your band. I love your hair." I went home with her and proceeded to fuck her for the next few weeks. She wasn't really my type for relationship purposes. She was really into magic and spells and it was hard to keep a straight face when she was talking about it. But sex-wise things worked pretty well. One night, her stripper friend stayed at her house for whatever reason. We got a little drunk on screwdrivers. Her friend actually had fire tattooed between her thighs. I will refer to her as Fire Thighs, or featuring from here. We were joking about her tattoos that they meant she had gonorrhea. At one point she actually pulled her panties down and showed me that she was very clean. The girl I was banging thought my dumbfounded reaction to her friend was hilarious. So we decided to sneak into a local cemetery that was a popular spot for college students to drink and hang out. You got a view of the whole city from a hill. It was nice. We were drinking and sitting in front of a mausoleum that we had dubbed the Vampire Castle because it was huge and kinda scary at night. My fuck buddy was being real silly and kept putting Fire Thighs, FT, hand on my crotch. Featuring kept saying stop it, but she was laughing too. At one point my friend was holding FT's hand on my dick and wouldn't let go, and featuring just started rubbing. They were giggling about the fact that I was hard as a rock at this point. Next thing I knew, my dick was out and in their mouths. It was pretty good. Not going to lie. My fuck buddy finished me off with her hand, but I got to come on FT's face, which was pretty cool. I think we planned to go home and fuck, but we had snorted Clonopin at some point and we were way too tired. That was disappointing because I really wanted to fuck featuring. A couple of weeks later I broke it off with my friend so I could date the singer of another local goth band, so I never got to do the full-on three-way with featuring. That's my story. A little weird to type all that out, but fuck it. Last summer, I ran into my former neighbor at the beach. Very attractive woman. She was 42 and I was 20. She watched me grow up. I used to mow the lawn for her. Always admired her from a distance, but naturally, never thought something could happen. She moved away when I was 16. After we bumped into each other, she sent me an Instagram DM. I guess that's the only place she could find me, I dunno, saying that it was good to see me, followed by, and I quote, "I hope it's not creepy to say this but you're looking really good these days, game on." She picked me up in her soccer mom mobile and I enjoyed a refined blowjob. We banged lots. It was unreal. We still talk, and send the odd naughty pic, but we both agreed it probably wasn't best to get too attached. TLDR, I had sex with the mom next door, a true Stacy's mom experience that I'll never forget. Edit, more details I guess. We messaged for about 3 days after the run-in at the beach. On the third night, it went down. She couldn't wait though. Took me straight into a kiss. Drove to her house and the rest is history. She knew what she was doing in every regard. The best part was that she had a bunch of the adult gossip from the other neighbors on our old street with whom I'd never really interacted. I learned that John, the guy who's always fixing bicycles, was gay and religious. He is also South African, but that's not relevant to the point. Painting a picture. Dart. Dude's married with kids and bangs his wife from behind and that's why she has short hair. It all clicked. She was 42 and I was 20. I had a similar experience. I worked at a Blockbuster in an upper-class neighborhood in the 90s when I was going to college. There was this really hot older woman that would come in and ask for movie recommendations from time to time, and she'd always flirt with me a little. One day I was restocking the shelves and she came up and asked if I lived nearby. She wanted to know if I wanted to make some dog-sitting money while she went on a business trip. I said sure, and I took her number. When I called her after my shift she asked if I'd like to come over to meet the dog and see the house, and maybe hang out for a little bit. I said of course. She asked if I had any problems with hanging out because of our age difference, making it extremely obvious what she was hinting towards. I said absolutely not and rode my 10-speed over to her place. She introduced me to the dog, showed me where the dog food was, gave me a house key, etc. We were in the kitchen pouring drinks when she asked me if I thought she dressed too young. She was wearing a really tight-fitting halter top and was, ahem, blessed. I said, well, you clearly have the body for it, so number. She said, you think? Well, I never had any kids, so these things are still really perky, as big as they are, and undid the halter top, revealing what I still consider a pair of the greatest boobs I've ever seen, and I spent a year valeting at a strip club. Seriously, they looked like a slightly smaller version of Tessa Fowler's, if you know who that is, Dart. She never went on that business trip, or even had one to begin with. For the next 3 months, the only time some part of my body was outside of hers was when I was physically in class or asleep, and even then I wasn't totally safe. I woke up to my dick in her mouth several times. She was insatiable 24/7 and insisted that I finish either on her face or down her throat, no matter what, every time. It only ended when she insisted on meeting my parents. She was older than them by a year, and she didn't understand that they wouldn't understand, and I broke it off. There was a lot of ages just a number stuff, but we were in such different places. She had a career and a mortgage and I rode a bike to a job that forced me to wear a name tag that was in the shape of movie ticket. That was literally 20 years ago. I tried to look her up on social media once, but she would be 62 now. I turned 40 this year. I'm also in a happy monogamous relationship. Edit, if any of you ever come back and read this, I have a weird sad amazing postscript to this story. Quick history. 3 years ago, The apartment that my girlfriend and I lived in burned down. We lost a lot. Lucky for us, my family had a run-down rental property that needed tenants to help fix it up in exchange for extremely cheap rent, and since the move-in date was immediately and we didn't really have anything else, we moved right in. Cut to this past November. The GF and I are happy and healthy in our cool rental house and life has improved quite a bit. Neither of us had lived in the suburbs since high school, so while the quiet lifestyle took some getting used to, we're really enjoying it. Election day rolls around and we find our polling place and plan on going separately because of our work schedules. I get to the church right after work to a decently sized crowd. The nice church lady at the front informs me that I just need to register quick before I can vote. No biggie. Where do I do that? I said. Just over there with Nancy. See her there? Nancy waves. I walk over and as I'm walking, my stride slows down as my heart jumps into my fucking throat because that's fucking her. Her name tag confirms it. It's her. She's shuffling papers and chatting with the two teenage church volunteers at the table next to her as I'm trying to conjure just what in the fuck I'm going to say to this woman. She didn't show any signs of recognizing me yet, but that doesn't really matter because I'm about to have to tell her my full name and spell it out, and oh god, WTF am I going to say to this person that I have nothing but pornographic memories of that's now sitting shoulder to shoulder with wholesome church children. Hello there sir, how are you doing tonight? But how are you? She smiles. I'm great. My name is Nancy, I'll be registering you so you can get to voting and be on your way. She doesn't recognize me yet. I'm now standing across a table from her. Politeness is what I'm getting. Can you spell your full name for me? Oh god, here we go. Sure, I spell my name. She's typing it in and looking up at me, and nothing. She types and fills some things out. Maybe she's pretending. Oh god, what if she clocked me right away and she's just pretending not to recognize me? Do I say anything? Christ, then she'd have act surprised, and that would be almost as awkward. It was so busy today, you have no idea, she says. She doesn't seem like she's acting at all. I bet. I saw the lines downtown after work. She's typing away. It's on the tip of my tongue to say something, when, Jesus, it hits me that if she doesn't recognize my face, and my full name doesn't ring any bells either, what if she literally forgot about it? What then? Would I try to verbally jog her memory in front of these kids? Shit. What if one of them is her kid? And alright, here we go. You're all set. Take this form over to Chris and he'll give you your ballot. Have a great night. She hands me the forms. And she greets the next person in line. And I go vote. Afterwards, as I'm standing with the guy that feeds the paper into the machine, I see that she's still at her table. I should go say something. If she gets up, that would be easier, but she doesn't, and now the guy is done. I'm just gonna look like a fucking weirdo if I ask to speak to her privately. I'll just do it. I'll just go up and say, hey, are you Nancy last name, and see what happens. What could G? Excuse me sir, I really need you to clear this area if you're done, said the voting machine man. There's some cookies in the foyer for voters, and they're delicious. Have a nice night. I smile, walk to the cooker table, and out the door into the cool November air of the Presbyterian Church parking lot. She had a career and a mortgage, and I rode a bike to a job where I wore a name tag that was in the shape of a movie ticket. Well, when you put it like that. I was really hoping in 1998 she would throw The Undertaker off Hell in a Cell, because holy shit, your experience is crazy and I wish it would happen to me. I met a girl because I went outside at a party to have a smoke and found her bawling her eyes out because she broke up with her boyfriend. 10 minutes later we were upstairs in an empty room fucking like rabbits. I always feel like this is worst thing I've done. Second would be the hottest 60+ YO woman I met while getting drunk in a jacuzzi at a hotel area. We were staying there for my grandmother's 70th anniversary shindig. So my whole family was there. I was invited back to this woman's room after a lot of drinks and learned a lot of new shit when it comes to sex. But goddamn was she in good shape and looked great for her age. I fucked my coworker at work on top of the bar. And in the handicap stall in the women's bathroom. And then the bathroom sink counter. After we closed, of course. Also met a guy at a bar when I just went to have a bratwurst and be left alone. He was in town for business and leaving early the next day. I offered to show him around the city. He said sure. I was on my period, but I have an oral fixation. So I had a one-night stand with throat fucking. Ew, that reminds me of the girl I hooked up with. I banged her, and as I was leaving she asked when I could see her again, and I gave some rambling, non-committal answer and she started to cry. OFC, I never saw her again. Met a girl in Las Vegas at an EDM concert while on coke for the first time. I don't normally experiment with drugs. Dart. She was dancing staring at me, said she really liked my beard. We exited the dance floor and she was telling me she won a Sunday school teacher. Followed by don't worry I still know how to have fun, and in short order after that said she was going to fuck me as soon as we left. We found my friend that I was sharing a room with, told him I was headed back and he shouldn't come back anytime soon. Wink wink. Me and the lady make it to the taxi where she says she's not wearing any panties. I checked, she wasn't, and she liked it. Long story short, and we get to the room and she tells me I can do anything I want to her. She stayed the night, we went at it in the morning and she left without stealing anything, which was a nice bonus. For whatever reason we exchanged numbers and she would send me dirty videos. Mid-20s were a crazy time. Driving for Uber. Picked up an unattractive girl who just got stood up on a Tinder date. She mentioned the guy could have gotten laid easily. I volunteered and went in her place with her. She turned out to be the female version of the South Park WoW guy. Worked in it. House looked like a hoarder lived there. Garbage all around the place. Vibrators just laying out in the open in her bedroom. Afterwards she asked me if she could still tip or if that would be prostitution. 5-star I'd. Edit. Full disclosure. It went about exactly as you'd all imagine. Awkward and rushed, but I'm not ashamed. Big girls need love too. For the others asking how you can hook up with someone who's unattractive, the only answer I have is a good imagination can get you through some rough times. Girl was a monstrously gross slob, still fucked her anyway. Impressive. Very nice. Afterwards she asked me if she could still tip or if that would be prostitution. Such consideration. Went on a trip with my friends who are still in college to New Orleans. We stayed in a shitty motel. I ended up in a room with a bunch of their friends who I didn't really know, with 2 things of Mad Dog and blunts. Some girl dragged me into the bathroom and we fucked. Apparently it wasn't quite, and everyone knew it happened. I woke up the next morning and looked at my buddy and he said, "So you fucked XXXXX last night?" I responded with, "Is that who it was?" Not my proudest moment. Kind of a toss-up between that one time I hooked up with 3 different people in the same day, and that one time on a San Francisco sidewalk outside a bar on a fucking random Wednesday when a girl shouted, "Anybody wanna go home with me?" 4-6. And I looked at her and said okay. I later had to go running back out of her house to find condoms and ended up bumming one from a prostitute, who winked and smiled at me and said, "You'll have fun." I met a girl I had never seen before at a college bar, a college neither of us attended, at about 10 p.m. By 1:30, we were at her place and had sex twice. She gave me free McDonald's the next day. We just had our 16th anniversary. We're really happy. Happier than most of our friends. We talk all the time. We still rent, but we have a porch and play cards outside when it's nice. She usually wins. I have a really specific kink that I will do at least once a month. My partner will find a stranger, make sure they are clean, and will have met them at least once. Then when we set a date for the 3 of us to meet and fuck, I am blindfolded the entire time. They can talk to me but they cannot tell me their name. I never know what they look like because I keep the blindfold until they leave. I have done this 10 times. That's 10 guys I have fucked and I don't know what they look like. And it's pretty hot knowing that. Edit. I forgot to mention my partner doesn't watch during this either. He participates. He is bisexual, so we have a threesome while I am blindfolded. Sorry, I thought that came across in the previous post. It'd be pretty funny if it was just the same guy every time. and your partner has just gotten lazier. When I was a minor, 17, I asked a guy I had met on Tinder to buy me alcohol in exchange for a blowjob. He agreed and he came and picked me and my friends up to take us to Safeway. He went in without us and bought vodka and smoked us out on our way to a park near my friend's house. When we got to the park, my friends got out and sat at a picnic table about 75 feet away. The guy and I got into the back seat. I blew him, grabbed the alcohol, walked back to my friend's house, and got pretty drunk that night. Probably not the sluttiest. So I met this girl at a club I knew. I knew her from childhood. She liked the way I looked. She was clearly drunk. I was pretty intoxicated as well. I suggested we go outside to get to know each other better. We go outside and she starts sucking me off. Then stops. As I was drunk, I was going soft at the rate of a ribbon dropping. So I started to masturbate to keep hard. I didn't realize how fast I was going and I ended up ejaculating all over my jeans. This chick I was friends with for a while told me through text she was hard up for cash and I was drunk, so I responded back that I'd give her $20 to show me her tits. So her response was, stop by, I'm at work. She worked at a hotel. I get there and it's late and we go in the back behind the front desk where she pulls her tits out, and they were everything I had hoped for. Anyways, I wasn't letting those things be put away without at least grabbing one, so I did and she was into it. Next thing you know, she's pulling her pants off. I put her up on the laundry room counter and I'm going balls deep in her. Good times. She told me that was what led her to become a stripper, and as far as I know she still strips to this day. Had a one night stand with a random guy I met on a bus. It was surprisingly good. Never contacted him again. I have also given oral sex on the banks of the Bogachil River, and underneath a pier, and at 69 in an empty church. Also before Tinder, I would hook up off of Craigslist casual encounters. I always had a good time. I would make sure to meet them in public, let someone know where I was going, and never responded to anyone who referred to women as females. The only time something went wrong was when the guy looked like my little brother and I called the whole thing off. Edit. Guys asking about the females thing. It feels clinical and dehumanizing. Trial and error proved it was a good barometer for assholes. I know some folks say it because they are in the military, but honestly that's a whole other bag of worms. And if they live on base, logistics, that I might not necessarily want to deal with on a one night stand. I did eventually marry a veteran, but I've never heard him refer to a woman as a female. Never responded to anyone who referred to women as females. You were ahead of your time. Sluttiest thing ever. I slept with 5 different people over the course of 36 hours, spring break in the Bahamas, for the sole purpose of proving to my buddies that I was over my ex. I also somehow managed to go from chasing after a drunken girl who stole my hat to having sex behind a fraternity house with said girl in about 15 minutes. Still not sure how that happened. Sluttiest thing I've ever witnessed is a girl taking a friend of mine upstairs, blowing and fucking him, letting him finish inside her, and then come back downstairs to pick up another guy. She repeated this with about 6 guys that we know of. Could have been more. No one found out until the next morning, at which point they all took a walk over to the free clinic. 2 related stories here, and fair warning, I'm a guy, so no spank bank material here unless that's what you're into. TLDR, I ruined my best friend's couch, gave sound relationship advice and, later, received a glowing reference. I'm 21 at this point and had just been stationed at my first permanent duty base. A friend and I had some girls over in his dorm room to drink and watch movies. Me and a very sturdily built Puerto Rican girl, Evelise, were on his couch while he and the other girl lay on his bed. They eventually passed out, so Ivy and I took the opportunity to start having loud, raucous sex on the couch, which didn't take long to wake the others up. They must not have been in a voyeuristic mood because they got up, went what the fuck, and left. Ivy and I continued and my friend started coming back with other people and parading them through his room to see what we were doing and protesting loudly about his couch. At one point, While I'm sitting on the couch and Ivy is on her knees blowing me, another friend of mine walks in with a downtrodden look on his face. When he sees Ivy and I in our full naked glory, he says, "Oh, sorry, I'll come back later," to which I responded, "No, what's the matter, bud?" He sits down on the arm of the couch, on which naked me is still getting head from naked Ivy, and proceeds to tell me how his girlfriend just broke up with him and he's having a rough time. So he and I have a real heart-to-heart talk about relationships and heartbreak, all while I'm still getting head on the couch. After we talked he said thanks for listening and left, and Ivy and continued what we were doing. That's the end of the first story. The next story is related because Ivy and I continued hooking up for some time after that night, and, while she is involved, she isn't the subject of this story. So one night a few weeks or months after the couch story, I'm laying in bed alone and watching Jurassic Park while I fall asleep. It's late at night, early in the morning, and I'm starting to drift off when someone bangs on my door. I figured it was one of my friends drunk, so I open the door and a girl I don't know with her hair pulled down over her face pushes past me into the room and shuts all the lights off. I turn to her sort of stunned and ask, "Can I help you?" with more than a little "what the fuck" in my tone. She turns to me and says, obviously trying to disguise her voice, "I heard you know how to eat pussy." That was pretty close to the bottom of the list of things I was expecting her to say, and all I could get out was yeah, I guess so. She goes into the explanation about how she has a hard time getting off from sex and she's really horny tonight and she just wants me to go down on her. I, being young and stupid and thinking almost entirely with my dick, agree. She strips down, lays back on my bed, and I get to work. Things go well. She gets hers a few times and then, just like that, she's up, throws her shorts on, and runs out of my room. I'm just sitting there stunned when hindsight kicks in and I convince myself that she was dirty and actually start washing my mouth out with undiluted rubbing alcohol. A few days later Ivy and I are hooking up again, and I tell her the story of the mystery cunnilingus girl. Turns out, she knows who it was. Apparently that night Ivy and a bunch of friends, including Mystery Girl, were drinking together and talking about guys and sex. Mystery Girl was telling stories about her own sexual misadventures and Ivy was, apparently, presenting me in a very positive light because, as Ivy told it, Mystery Girl just got up and ran off without saying anything to anyone and they all wondered where she had went, which, it turns out, was to my room. So that's it. I just want to salute you for very clearly delineating your two stories. This might get buried, but 1. Fucked a guy in the college dorm common area. 2. Got drunk and woke up in a guy's dorm. Proceeded to have sex. I have no idea who he was. He denies it now. 3. Let 4-5 guys, all older than my dad, have their way with me in exchange for copious amounts of cocaine. 4. Hooked up with the table I was serving. Repeat 4 times with other customers. 5. Let a guy set up an appointment for me to have sex with a random unknown dude in his car in a parking lot. 6. Had sex with a guy who made me hide in a closet because he thought he heard his GF. 7. Had sex with 3 different guys at different times in one day. I could probably continue, but these are the highlights. As the only single and straight male in my college's theater department during my junior year, you can imagine how the opening night after parties went. The worst though, was when I found myself in a back hallway of the hosting apartment next to the bathroom. I had to pee but the bathroom was occupied, so naturally I popped a squat on a nearby card table to wait my turn. While biding my time, a couple of girls meandered in my direction and we began chatting. Well, one thing led to another and they began taking turns sucking my face while I sit there on this card table waiting to pee. And then another girl appeared, and another, until there were 5 girls now lining up to take their turns quenching their thirst as if I'm the drinking fountain of youth. The carousel of kissing continued for 4 or 5 revolutions before finally petering out. Oh, and my ex was sitting on a nearby windowsill the whole time, and I knew she was there. Little do you know they were just keeping you busy so they could cut in front of you for the bathroom line. Theater girls love to fuck. I was in a production once, also straight male, and had a flirty friendship with one of the girls. I had a GF so things never went anywhere during the production. Broke up with my GF a couple months later, texted this girl and basically said I am single, what's up? She told me to pick her up from the train station that night. Fucked for a weekend like rabbits. Good times. I had to pee but the bathroom was occupied, so naturally I popped a squat on a nearby card table to wait my turn. You clearly don't realize that pop a squat is slang for a female pissing. To use that intentionally to mean sit. Where I'm from, pop a squat is a gender neutral term for taking a shit. I used to be a bartender and a bit of a drunk, so there are a few. The worst was probably the time I had sex with this lady I met about an hour before the end of my shift. She was a bit older, 47, and I was 21, but she was very good looking. She flirted with me a lot and bought me a drink when I finished my shift. I was young, so I thought she was just being nice and playful until she puts her hand on my lap and whispers in my ear, I want to sit on your face. We then hurried back to my place, but I'm not wanting to wake my roommates, so instead of taking her to my room we go downstairs and proceed to knock boots on my couch. The worst part was when she told me her son was older than I am, and I came so hard. I'm just kidding, she told me that after we had finished. The actual worst part was it turned out she was married. I'm not really a fan of cheating, so I now always check to see first. The sex was pretty decent, but I did feel kind of used afterwards. I don't condone cheating, but I have a female FWB who I assumed I wouldn't be sleeping with anymore because she moved to Cali to be with her new BF. Instead she hit me with, if we don't fuck, what else am I supposed to do when I come back to visit Phoenix? Followed by, I could be married to another guy and have kids and I'd still be fucking you. My ego and ick was hard after she said that. But seeing that this wasn't my only instance of sleeping with someone in a relationship, it made me feel like a major man whore. Other things I've done. Girl asked me to choke her during sex on 4th of July. I was supposed to be fasting for Ramadan. Was in glory hole porn 5 times. Wanna expand on that last part? Lol, how does one just happen to do that 5 times? So, I recently had sex with 3 women in one day. The first girl had spent the night, and we woke up till morning grind. Afterwards, we ate, messed around, and took a nap. During that time girl number 2 asked if she could come over, and thinking that girl 1 would leave soon I said yes. So girl 2 shows up while girl 1 and I are still taking our nap, and apparently she didn't care because I woke up to her hanging out with my roommate, and as girl 1 gathered her things and left, girl 2 never batted an eye. So then girl 2 and I go to my room and she starts up an afternoon romp session, until she had to go to work. Then, after girl 2 leaves, I invited over girl number 3 and of course we did our thing and then went to sleep soon after. So yeah, I woke up with one girl, got her out the door as girl 2 arrived, and then ended the night with girl number 3 staying over. I really don't know how to feel about it. The boathouse in Barbados where apparently me and a girl I met there are legends. Basically said 5 words to her, went onto the beach to where I thought nobody could see us. One of the locals even came up to us while she was riding me. She just said ignore him while I was telling him to fuck off. On the way back to the bar, soaked and covered in sand, the whole bar cheered as they were all watching. It wasn't as secluded as I thought. I was once voluntarily homeless for about a year. After reading Henry Miller's tale of his life as a starving artist in Paris, of how he could be fed at least once a day by finding 7 friends and only imposing on them once a week for dinner, I set out to find 7 girlfriends. Based on Henry's model, my notion was that I would have both good loving and a place to stay every night without imposing. In due time I had 6 different women that I was seeing, but soon found that I was making love to one at night and again in the morning, and then the next one would want to fuck me soon after I arrived at her house, and then again, and again. I never thought I could get burned out on sex, but it happened. What followed was a period of time when women would meet me and want me, but I would say number. I soon learned that women don't like being rejected any more than men do. Eventually I came to understand that quantity is never a good substitute for quality, particularly when it comes to sex and making love. I found a lover who made me very happy and I'm still with her many years later. Had a friend that did something similar for a year after college. He kept all his clothes at his sister's house, and then dated 4 girls at the same time, all in different towns. He would stay at his sister's house once or twice a week mainly to do laundry, pack new clothes, and get a good night's sleep. Then he bounced around staying with all the other girls. He was able to pay off the majority of student loans that way. This is why I have a strict, no men come home with me to my house rule. I don't wish to be one of the harem girls ever again. Cracks knuckles, my time to shine. I had sex in a cemetery. Not like the cemetery you are probably thinking of, you know, a plot of grassy land with some headstones here and there. This was a concrete tomb-style cemetery in New Orleans. I think it might have been the St. Rochstart. I was talking to this guy on Tinder and we decided to meet up in Lafayette Square. We grabbed a bite to eat around sunset and started walking and talking as it got darker outside. We had been sexting on Tinder and were both very horny and had mentioned finding an alleyway or something to do it in. It was Mardi Gras after all, dart. But walked around for a while without any luck of finding a secluded place. We start heading back from the residential area we had been walking through and find ourselves next to a giant concrete wall. We realized it was a closed cemetery, and since it was closed no one would be there. So then, fueled by hormones and sexual tension, we scale this 7-foot concrete wall into total seclusion from the living. We immediately start making out, quickly get our pants down and just start banging amongst the dead. We're probably cursed, but it's a fun story to tell. When I was 16, there were 3 girls that lived across the street from me, a set of twins, not identical, and their younger sister, aged 16 and 15. Anywho, their grandma kept them on lockdown most of the time, but they managed to acquire boyfriends at some point, who they intended on inviting all over to bang on. One of grannies went to the laundromat. The issue was that they were all 3 virgins and didn't want to be when the time came to be with their boyfriends. Looking back, I do not understand the logic. So, one day granny goes out and they sent my sister, who hung with them, over to get me. The plan was for me to have sex with all 3 of them so they weren't virgins any longer. I excitedly agreed, even though I knew who their boyfriends were and they could have whooped my ass something terrible. Long story short, I took the twins, one at a time, to the bedroom and we had awkward, passionless, protected sex while the other sister stood in the hallway. Unfortunately I came with the second twin and was not really in mood to continue any longer, which was just as well as she didn't seem very into it. For about 15 minutes of my life, I had a line of people waiting to have sex with me and I'm not going to lie, I felt like a mag. Sorry for the length, this isn't a story I often get to drag out lol. My 20s were extremely slutty. I had a boyfriend with a cuckold fetish. He used to invite guys over based on their dick size and muscle tone for me to bang in front of him. He said his hottest memory was watching me bang 3 huge dudes in the morning, then another 4 dudes after lunch. Oh, and the gross one is when I had sex with a rather endowed FWB in the afternoon, then went to the pub to wait for my boyfriend. Before he showed, a guy started chatting me up, then 15 minutes later I had him back at my place, and I was sitting on his face. Boyfriend said he had always wanted to storm into the bedroom yelling. I had texted him what I was up to. Okay, despite the name, this is a 100% true story. A long while back, I guess I was around 20, a friend and I were at my apartment swimming pool drinking beer. It was just us 2 until a group of about 6 or so girls about our age all showed up at about 2 AM. They turned out to be bridesmaids from a wedding party that just let out. A few minutes later the bride and groom showed up. We all sat in the pool and hot tub drinking and having a good time. Everyone was pretty drunk but the groom was wasted. He was hitting on the bridesmaids and pissing off his brand new wife. A couple hours later all the bridesmaids left and now it's just me, my friend, the bride and groom. All of us but the groom are in the hot tub. The groom is passed the fuck out on the deck next to the hot tub. Now me and the bride start getting flirty. There starts to be a lot of touching under the water. My friend finally noticed and got out the tub and into the pool. Not long after, The touching turned into her straddling me and we are fucking right there. Her brand new hubby is passed out just a couple feet from us, and even worse, he's covered in dozens of mosquitoes. So here I am, fucking some girl that I have only known for a couple hours, just feet from her mosquito infested husband of maybe 12 hours. It gets worse. I now got her bent over and hitting it from behind and her hubby starts to show signs of life. I quickly sit down and she sits down right next to him. He starts opening his eyes and kinda grunting moaning and she starts rubbing her feet on my dick. Hubby turns over and pukes, stands up and stumbles off toward the apartment buildings. Now the bride and I go at it with no reserves. My friend leaves. The bride and I get to hot for the hot tub and jump in the pool. Eventually we stop when the sun starts coming up and people are leaving for work. It gets worse. She comes to my apartment that afternoon and tells me how big of a mistake it was and how she's not a slut and all this. Well, after she explains that to me she was right back on my dick again. So yeah, that was kinda slutty of both of us. God, I mean define sluttiest. I struggled with sex addiction through my whole 20s and early 30s, so I am pretty much a slut by definition. My number of partners is in the triple digits, barely 105 at the moment. In the past 5-6 years, I've worked hard to change who I am and how I view sex and relationships, but my sexual history is, in the words of Ron Swanson, epic. I swear on everything I hold dear, that these are true. I fucked 2 separate, that is, not a threesome, girls in one day a few times. I have had threesomes with 2 women, and threesomes with a cis woman and a trans woman. I had a goddamn incredible threesome with 2 girls and a strap-on for my birthday. Still my favorite sexual memory. I fucked a woman in a parking lot bent over the trunk of her car, while her friend watched and masturbated from the passenger seat, then finished in her mouth, and she went and made out with her friend, spitting my cum in her mouth. I've regrettably fucked women I wasn't even remotely attracted to just because I was horny, and felt disgusted with myself afterward. And done it repeatedly. I fucked a girl who only wanted to fuck me to stop me from fucking her best friend. Similarly, I fucked a girl who went and bragged to her best friend so much that the best friend came over and fucked me the very next day. I used to fuck a pregnant stripper who hated her boyfriend, cheated with me, and only wanted anal since she was pregnant. I had serious sexual tension with my old roommate, but we never acted on it until one night she was house sitting for my mother. They were good friends, an hour drive away. She was sleeping in my grandfather's old bed, as he had died just a month or 2 before. She texted me, things got flirty, she dared me to put my money where my mouth is. I left our house to drive an hour to my mom's house to fuck the shit out of her in my dead grandfather's bed. Fucked a girl in the ocean in full view of hundreds of people, concealed only by the water. It was a busy day at the beach, tons of people around. The water was about chest deep for me. I'm 6'4". She was standing in front of me, sort of hanging on me with her hands clasped behind my neck. When she reached down, pulled her bikini bottoms and my trunks off, then wrapped her legs around me and slid down on my dick, clasping her hands behind my neck again. We just let the waves do all the work for us. To any bystander it looked like we were just standing there cuddling and kissing. If I think of any more, I'll edit this. But yeah, I've had a pretty awesome sex life. My whole life I was the prude who really wanted to wait until marriage. I'd make out with guys but never passed second base, until I met this guy freshman year of college. 12 hours after we started dating I had sex with him. I gave up my morals real quick. We stayed together but the slut phase had been awakened. I insisted on an open relationship and had wild adventures all through college, such as the time I slept with 3 different guys in 3 nights and ended the bender with going to a church sermon about how important it is to wait until marriage just covered in high keys. Had no idea which ones were from which guys. Also, the time I had a threesome with this older couple just to say I did it. She was 42 and he was 38. Also the time I showed up to this guy's house and the first thing he did was show me how sharp his knife collection was and I slept with him anyway because he had an impressively large penis. Also the time I convinced my friend's boyfriend's friend and some bouncer I met at bar to have a threesome with me. Sadly the friend fell asleep, so a MMF threesome is still on the bucket list. And the best part is I'm still with the original guy I slept with, so unless you know about my secret slut life I seem like a poster child for innocence. So a few years back I used to have a gig as a waiter for a boutique catering company that caters high class events. It was mostly charity events, parties on yachts and the like. One day we're working at this reception at a politician's house and you can tell it's going to be a swingers party. Me and my friend are talking shit and he dares me to try and get in on the action. I thought whatever, I was done with that job anyway, so I might as well go out in style. Plus no one is going to report this or anything as these things are done on the hush hush. So I wait for the action to start and I start mingling inconspicuously with the guests. One thing leads to another and I end up in a room with Gloria Vanderbilt. The woman was crazy. Trying to have sex with her was like trying to stick your dick in a hornet's nest glued to a coked up hyena. She ran around the room, doing cartwheels on the furniture while pissing all over the place. She called me a peasant and said I was like a donkey trying to fuck a thoroughbred horse. I felt humiliated, inadequate. I had to step up my game. Like a werewolf transforming at the sight of the moon, I gazed upon her wrinkled bare ass and transformed into a sex fiend. I lapped up her piss from the walls, slapped my dick into a raging erection and started pounding on my chest. She started screaming at me that I could never satisfy her. You asked for it, you wrinkled old fuck. It's time to get me some Victorian era pussy. I lunged at her, took out her dentures and stuck them up her ass. That's right, Gloria, your teeth will scrape my dick veins as I pound your ass. Well, old ass is old ass, so she shat herself all over my dick, but that wasn't going to stop me. I scraped away the poop and kept at it. Now it's blowjob time. You will blow it, Gloria. You will blow that dick, or so help me God I'll come so hard up your ass I'll impregnate your eyeballs. Suck it, she did, and I came in an ashtray. Or her vagina. Honestly it was hard to tell. Like a gentleman I then French kissed her, flung her broken body into the bidet and left a quarter between her butt cheeks. She's been calling me ever since, but I don't give a fuck. I was in it for the pussy, not the money.